Alright everybody, welcome to this week's Dissecting Design. And we got the perfect game for it with Cuphead being released and my marathon play of it Friday night. Cuphead is a great example of the pros and cons of a boss rush-centric game. Even though Studio MDHR has added in some run and gun segments, Cuphead was originally pitched to be just a series of boss battles. Something akin to Shadows of the Colossus, Punch-Out, Fury, and more. And boss rush design is very tricky to do right because it is entirely, or should be entirely, focused on the player's own progression, learning the game, figuring out how to deal with the bosses, etc., etc. And I think Cuphead may have gotten a little bit lost along the way there. But we're going to jump in and talk about the basic gameplay next. Alright, so we're in game now to show off one half of Cuphead's gameplay. This is the run and gun segment. Now, even though run and gun and the bosses are separate, they both feature the same basic controls. We move, we can jump, we have, if you can see right there, I can parry attacks that are coming my way, but only if they are the color pink. You can see in the bottom left, we have the super meter. I also have a dash, which normally doesn't have any iframes, but because of an item I have equipped, it does give it to me. If you notice in the bottom left, we have my super meter, as well as the number of lives that we have. Run out, or number of health, I should say. Run out of health, and you are starting over from the beginning. Get out of my way, you. Now, you can normally use your special meter for one charge of a enhanced version of your basic attack, but you can also have one of 3 supers equipped. And we'll be showing that off in a minute. Now, another thing to keep in mind is that the enemies in Cuphead will usually respawn, with exception to the mini-boss or stationary enemies. And while we're moving forward to the boss, also notice just how amazing the game looks. Now we have a little mini-boss here. Now here's one of my supers. There we go. Now I'm using one of the additional attacks as well. You have up, I think it's 6. I'll double check that once we get through this. Oh no! Oh, one more shot will have gotten him. With that, we come over and we're done with the stage. But each attack has a different range and damage capacity. And when you beat a level or boss, you are graded. And you are graded on the same elements for every stage. Time, how long it takes, HP bonus, self-explanatory, parry, the number of times you will do a parry, gold coins are exclusive to run and gun, the skill level is what difficulty you play the game at, whether on simple, regular, or expert. There's my guy, he's all excited here. Now, besides the run and gun aspects, or just the basic gameplay, you can choose one of 2 weapons to equip, A or B. And these are my choices. You usually start with the pea shooter as your default. And then I like the spread. The spread, I think, can be a little bit overpowered, and you'll see that once we get to a boss. Then there are these various charms. The charms are kind of like your way of modifying Cuphead, and you can only equip one. I personally like the invisible dash because you basically get iframes from it. And this is our little world map, which follows kind of like the old school charm as well. But with that said, it's time for a boss fight. We can show off the real meat of Cuphead and boss rush design. Alright, here we are, one of the many bosses of Cuphead. And again, the design is all about the bosses, or its focus on them. Bosses in Cuphead are all pattern-based and built on a number of phases. So while we are doing damage, and you won't be seeing their health, but you'll see them flash, the boss will be transitioning into different phases. Here comes his next one. And notice how the pattern changes and how what we have to do changes. I'm going to activate one of my specials. This time I have Invulnerability equipped, which gives me a few seconds of just being immune to damage. Now, one thing that's interesting is that if the boss is in the middle of a pattern and or in a phase, and you do enough damage to get them out of it, they will still keep doing it until the phase is over, the specific pattern. I'm confusing the two here. So now we're moving into the third stage. There we go. And notice how unique this fight gets as we're going through it. And that's one of the high points of this boss rush-centric design. So because of the focus, it really lets you do a whole lot with it. Oh no! It's also very hard to talk and play this game competently, as those of you who watch my live stream can attest. Now, even though the boss goes through multiple phases, their patterns within each phase are usually shuffled. And the harder the difficulty, the more patterns they will have access to. This should, in theory, be the last phase, or the last pattern. I'm trying out the charge shot just to mix things up. There we go, got him. Goodbye, buddy. And again, we're going to be graded. I think the charge shot is too slow for high-level play, though. Because it just takes too long to do it, especially when you're going for the time bonus. But we'll move over to another boss very quickly and show off one of the differences in Cuphead. Because there's two types of boss stages. We have the ground ones, and then we have air. Before I forget, I'm going to put back on my regular shot. So this is what an air fight is like, and it features different maneuvers and mechanics. Now we're in the air, and instead of having a unique special, they're tied to the airplane itself. I can also shrink instead of dash. And we have different specials, as you can see. Now this boss is a little bit easier to see the different phases, as she will keep transforming into different forms. Now, this is my special here. Get out of there, you. Now, there's no way of altering my damage with different shots here. At most, we have a bomb. Oh, jeez. And I just try to parry something that you can't parry, which is really good, right? If they get too close to me, I can, of course, shrink and try to avoid it that way. She should be moving into our final form any second now. And you'll know it when it happens, believe me. Come on. There we go. And that's her final form, folks. Ooh. And again, everything is pattern-centric. Oh, will I die? Let's see. Exciting, isn't it, folks? Got her. And of course, when the boss is dead, you don't have to worry about taking any more damage. Now, these airplane segments do mix things up, and each section of the game has at least one of them. Again, we're graded. And A-. Now, with that said, though, we're going to jump forward, and we'll talk a little bit more about what boss rush-centric design is like. Alright, welcome back. So, for this one, while I am hopefully trying not to get killed here, we'll talk more about what boss rush-centric design is like. Boss rush design, as the name implies, is a focus on boss battles as opposed to traditional level design. What that means is, it allows the designers the afforance to create very unique situations by the fact that they are essentially one-offs. Each boss in each stage will only appear one time ever in the game. And because of that, it lets them just get crazy with it. As you can see by the fact I am fighting a queen bee in what appears to be a honeycomb condominium. How dare you hit me? Again, I can use my specials here. Now, boss rush focused design is typically seen in skill-based titles and not RPGs. The idea is the player should be learning the patterns and figuring out the exact way of playing. And it looks like I am about to get killed. I actually screwed up the pattern for this fight. Can I recover, though? Probably not. Wow, I recovered. That was just unexpected there, folks. But again, that's another great thing about boss-centric design. I've played this fight enough times to know kind of how to avoid it and the best way of dealing with her. And it paid off with me being able to recover while trying to explain things. But when it comes to boss rush-centric design, like I said, it is usually focused on the player's skill. Any items or in-game extraction that's added in should serve the player and shouldn't discount what the game is about. And when we talk about Cuphead's problems in a minute or so, I'll be going into a little bit more detail about it. But so far as we've watched this video, or as you've been watching this video, I hope you've taken notice of just how different the various bosses are. While our basic mechanics, or what we're doing, is not changing at all, how the boss plays out and what we have to do against it does. Trying to get fancy there. Oops. Let's try that one again. But that is another great example. Again, the boss is doing something different that we have to adjust to. Here's my parry. Ooh. I wonder if I can... Maybe I have to parry it to jump? When I actually played the boss, he didn't use that attack, which is actually very fun, and goes back to what we were saying, with this focus on the various phases. There we go. And the cat back there signifies we're going to be jumping to another phase real soon. Alright, this time I want to try this. Aha, there we go. I got you, game. Uh-oh. And as you can see, things are certainly mixing up. Oh, so you can actually land on this. One of the small complaints about Cuphead is that it's sometimes hard to tell what is bad and what is good for you. Sometimes you're able to dodge attacks that it doesn't look like you can dodge, and other times it is the opposite. But again, you can see here just how much things are mixing up. And again, I hope you can hear the music, because it is really good. There we go. I'm not falling for it that time, you big tin can. Again, notice how different it is this time. The fact that I hopefully am knowing what he's doing. He should be moving into his third phase any second now. And there it is. This game definitely harkens back to the old days of cartoons where things can get very creepy. Oh no, he hit me. Damn you, ghosts. Now this should, in theory, be the killing blow. I'm just forcing it down, hopefully killing him. Got him. And look at that reveal. The mouse was in the cat the whole time. But, as you saw with the different strategies, you really have to essentially relearn each boss. And that is a very big point. None of the bosses in Cuphead or a game like Gunstar Heroes repeat in terms of their design. Once a strategy for the Bumblebee doesn't work on this one, and so on and so forth. And because of that, most games built on boss-centric design don't have a buffer, in the sense that the player can do something in-game to either trivialize or downplay their learning. With that said, though, Cuphead, like I said, does have a few issues in that department. But, to wrap up this section, the map here, again, this is just simply the hub or the layer for the various bosses. And each one does a really good job of testing the player and their mastery. Now, like I just said, even though each boss is different, once you've learned how to maximize Cuphead's damage and mobility, it does allow you to get around pretty much anything that they can throw at you. Found a coin while recording, that's perfect. And then there are some bonus stuff as well, but maybe we'll show that at the end of this video. With that said, I'm going to pop back out, and we're going to talk about some of the problems that I have with Cuphead's design, and what it means towards the progression of the player. Welcome back. Before we get to talking about Cuphead's issues with the boss rush design, I want to talk about the run and gun segments. When the game was originally pitched, it was just focused on the bosses, and according to Studio MDHR, this was kind of an afterthought. This was part that was added in when they realized they had the popularity and the money to grow the game. But in all honesty, I think this gets in the way of the boss fights. The issue is twofold. First is the fact that it uses the same rules and bounds of the bosses in these longer segments. And as you can see as we played, there are a lot more enemies here than there are in a boss fight, which means it's very easy to lose 3 points of health compared to those sections. Another point is that my basic moves never change. We're still doing the exact same thing for a boss, but with more of a platforming element to it. And because of that, it just kind of feels very same and repetitive as we keep going. Alley-oop, alley-oop, alley-oop. Again, my moves aren't changing. The environment does offer a little bit in terms of difference, but it's not the same as, like, let's say a Mario game when something brand new is added in, or we get to a new element that changes how we play. So as I'm going through this, we're still doing the same kind of platforming, same kind of segments. And a part of me just wonders if the game would have been better without the run and gun, and either leave the same number of bosses in, or add in more bosses. But again, though, without being at Studio MDHR, I don't know what exactly their workflow was like. Pretty sure I'm about to get hit here, but we'll see if we can make it through. And there are only 6 run and gun levels, 2 per world. I'm impressing myself there. But for each segment, the environment is changing and impacting things, but it kind of feels like a distraction away from the actual gameplay, of the bosses, I should say. But with that said, I want to turn to a boss. I want to show off a little bit what a lot of people have called kind of like the easy way of playing it, and talking about whether or not it's actually discounting or harming the gameplay. Alright, welcome back. So for this fight, I'm using what a lot of people have been dubbing kind of like the easy way of playing Cuphead. And that's using the charm that gives me 2 points of health but at the cost of damage, and the homing shot, which may be the weakest firing in the game, but it never, or very rarely misses, as you can see. I don't even need to be aiming in order for it to turn around and hit her. And I kind of feel this trivializes learning the game in a sense. Because as I said in the last section, a major part of boss rush-centric design is the fact that you have to learn the patterns and learn how to actually play against these characters. Now, she should be going into phase 2. And take note of how quickly we're going through this fight. Because again, I should be at my weakest. I'm gonna try and brute force this. Oh, jeez. I'm not even sure again how I actually avoided that. I'm sure I'm gonna get hit right here. Yeah, I knew that was coming. Watch it, baby. But when it comes to boss rush-centric design, again, a major part, by the fact that I'm trivializing it, means that I'm not really learning these patterns. And now for, I think, either second or final form. Because you don't really need to aim when you have auto shot. Take that. And even though my attacks are supposed to be at their weakest, we're still doing a fairly good amount of damage to her. Alright, one more form. And I don't think this will be enough to kill her, but it should get us really close. Got her. So if you notice, I want to see what our time is for that fight, because I'm really curious how long. It felt like it was about like 2.5 minutes. Let's see. Wow, I was off by 4 seconds. So really, on average, to get the best rating in Cuphead, you need to beat a boss in under 2 minutes. So even though this is definitely considered the easy way, there are a few downsides to it. But again, it feels weird to have these shortcuts in a game that's as skill-focused as Cuphead. But I know with that said, though, the counterpoint is it better to give every player a chance to get through the game at the expense of the gameplay itself? One of the criticisms of the game Fury, for instance, was the fact that if there was no buffer at all. So there are no additional items I could buy, no additional attacks. If I got stuck at a fight, that's it. I can't progress any further. And with Cuphead, as you can see, there are different ways of playing. And some of the bosses are very trivial if you have the right attacks equipped. But in the same breath, though, is it alright to basically, essentially gut or cut your own design at the kneecaps to make your game easier? This is not the same as adjusting a difficulty setting, or even in Cuphead's case, literally having 2 available at the start, the third one available once you beat it. This is basically just intentionally changing your game or downplaying it. So I'm curious what you folks think about that. Because honestly, I think the game should have just stood on its own and just offer more skill options rather than make things easier. But again, I think this is going to be a point that could be a little bit divisive in the chat below. But I'm going to head back to the main menu and we'll talk about my final thoughts on Cuphead. Alright, to wrap up our look at Cuphead, I want to talk about the advanced options, because we spent the last section talking about how they made things more accommodating for lesser skilled players. But if you've noticed going around that some of the flags had different marks on them. The P represents the pacifist, which is if you can beat every run and gun level without firing a shot, you unlock this. Now we're really retro, aren't we? And then and as we saw with the rating systems, if you can get an average of an A-, you unlock this view. And as we said, there's also expert versions of each of the boss fights that also will change up their patterns and increase the speed. Overall, I really enjoyed Cuphead, but I don't think the game is firing on all cylinders, in the sense that every game element or every mechanic and system feeds into each other to create a cohesive experience. The fact that the run and gun and boss sections kind of feel like they're of two minds is a good example of that. And again, with your different shots and abilities, for most people, I think you're going to find 2 or 3 of these, and then you're not going to change at all for the rest of the game. Same goes for your super and the charms. They kind of feel more, again, like accommodations to make the game easier rather than trying to grow the gameplay out. The fact that the one charm that gives you invulnerability frames is so powerful, it almost feels like the game should have been designed with that in mind, and then allow you to equip a charm to then personalize or customize your experience. But like I said, even with that said, this is a great example again of that focus of the boss rush. If we ignore the run and gun segments, every boss in Cuphead is 100% unique. They all provide a different touch and feel to them, and they just have, one of these bosses has probably more personality to them than what we see in most video games of like full titles like that. But for those of you who have played Cuphead, what do you think about the difficulty? Do you think it was right on the money? Do you think it was too hard? Do you even think it was too easy? Let me know in the comments below. But we're going to wrap things up here, and at some point we do need to take a look at Gunstar Heroes and see what that game did so well in terms of its boss-focused design, while still kind of having its cake and eating it too with the platforming and shooting elements. For those of you who are watching this, besides the games we've mentioned here, are there any other good examples of a boss-centric design that I didn't get to or mention in this video? Please let me know in the comments below, but thank you so much for watching. If you are new, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Check back for daily discussions on game design here, and on Game Wisdom, where we examine the art and science of games. New Dissecting Design pieces will usually go up every Monday. But let's say goodbye to Cuphead looks like we're at a fair, and I will see you all next time. Until then, have a good night. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. For my runnings as well as weekly podcasts, check out game-wisdom.com. For ways of supporting Game Wisdom and get access to rewards such as VIP status, as well as voting for the Saturday Night Grab Bag, check out patreon.com/gwbicer. You can follow me on Twitter at gwbicer for my daily thoughts as well as updates as to what's going on. So, thanks again for watching, and be sure to check out our next video coming real soon to the channel.